Hello, people of the internet. My name is JD Shadow. In case you are not aware of my position by now, let me go into depth about something known as third-party block lists. And this is going to be relevant to something that I have become aware of in a short amount of time, that being as of the time I'm recording this, I become aware of this. But let me talk to you about third-party block lists on Twitter. There are a few that are well known, as the Blockbot and Good Game Auto Blocker would have you believe, and those are flawed in of themselves because they base it around who you follow and a few things you might have said that went against what their political beliefs are. And although those are well known, there are several others that you might not even know exist, or how they judge whether or not you deserve to be put on these block lists. Now, how they work is pretty simple. They put their lists onto a website, you download them, and then you import them onto your Twitter account, and bang, bang, boom, you are blocking everybody who is listed on that list that you imported. Now, keep in mind that I don't mind people using the block as a method to get rid of unsightly trolls on the internet. However, manual blocking is there for a reason. You know exactly who it is you're blocking. You know why you're blocking them. You know why you're putting them on mute. I don't like to block people, period. There's very few people that I have blocked, if any. I have not done that, and there is a reason why. It is because I think it's way too easy for somebody to stifle a legitimate conversation about something. Twitter makes it way too easy for somebody to just shut out any form of legitimate criticism by saying, hey, I don't want to hear about it, I'm going to just block you right outright. And blocking has its very big consequences. Although, yes, you can unblock somebody, the fact of the matter is that the system is severely flawed and it's unjustly used in order for somebody to dodge legitimate criticism about their work, labeling the person who criticized them as some sort of racist or bigoted person. And we have seen that happen time and time again. This whole nature, this whole mindset, this whole trend nowadays, and people who just want to get out of having to answer a legitimate criticism about their work will just label anybody the lowest scum of the earth and will just block them right outright, and people will just blindly believe them because it plays into their sensitivities. It picks the lowest hanging fruit available, and it's really easy for somebody to sympathize with a person who brings that charge up against somebody else. I think that Twitter should make it a little bit harder for those people who are just using it in order to get out of having to answer hard questions from using it to do so. And not to mention that it is extremely easy in order to circumvent a block. That's why you have all those egg accounts. And of course, there is always the incognito mode on Google, or the equivalent of it on Firefox and Microsoft Edge. You cannot completely shield out anybody from your account completely unless you privatize your account. And at that point, people are probably going to assume that you are hiding something that incriminates you. In that sense, maybe it is a better idea that if you are being accused of something, to become a little bit more honest about it and to just address the concerns that people have had. Now, there is a difference between answering hard questions or dodging hard questions and just getting badgered and dogpiled with them over and over again after you have answered it several times in such a way that makes you sound credible. But alas, that is not the case with several of the people who abuse that system, and I do believe they do abuse that system. However, you are doing that manually. You know who it is you are blocking. You know who it is that you are taking out of the equation. However, using a third-party block list is taking that human element out of the equation. You're essentially handing the keys to the car to someone else and telling them they are okay to drive wherever they want. You don't know the person who has that block list. You don't know their beliefs. You don't know their political agenda. You don't know if they use their political agenda as a means to block somebody and put somebody on a block list. You don't know what they're trying to shield you from. They do not disclose their political beliefs. They do not disclose what they think about certain groups, about certain topics, about certain viewpoints, what their nuances are, what their absolutes are. You don't know, and they don't disclose. Sometimes legitimately and intentionally shield you from their true beliefs, because quite frankly, they do play on all those people's sensitivities in order to advertise their other means. For instance, the BlockBot played on the beliefs of social justice in 2014 and 2015. However, the people who were legitimately at the helm of that block list was Atheist Plus. And I have to believe that the main reason why they were coattailing on the heels of that social justice back in 2014 and 2015 is because they wanted to recruit people to join their other organization. Now, that has changed hands so many times, it's hard to tell who's owning it now or who's at the helm now. And they have been ridiculed with controversy for the longest time. And let's not get started about all the flaws that Good Game Auto Blocker has been put through. Putting the keys into the hands of someone else is essentially saying that you trust a stranger to come into your house. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know how they're going to act. You don't know what their beliefs are. You have to do your research. You have to know who it is that is on the list and the real reasons why. Maybe that person who they are blocking has legitimate beef about why they said the things they did. Or maybe they didn't say anything that you consider to be racist or homophobic or whatever it is, but they believe in their minds, in their interpretation, that what they said was. No two people are going to interpret any one thing exactly the same. Moreover, if they're being accused of something and somebody they put on the block list is highly and thoroughly investigating whether or not they have a legitimate concern there, they might be blocking your means to even hear that they're being investigated, hear that there is something that is not kosher there. And that is why I abhor those third-party block lists. I abhor the usage of them, because you don't know what you're getting yourself into when you hand the keys of your account to someone who you might not know what they're really all about. Now, I know there's going to be people who are going to defend this third-party block list for all time. They're not going to be able to have their minds changed no matter what, or maybe they are in it with the people who they're giving the keys to the car to. Maybe they consider them their best friends for doing that. Maybe they consider them just people. That's because they feel they are morally right. They feel they are on the moral high ground by doing that. You're going to try to tell them that they are on the moral low ground, and you are, but at the same time, they feel they're on the moral high ground. That's why it's hard to convince them otherwise, because there are people not only saying, hey, you guys are on the moral high ground, to enforce that belief that they are doing the right thing, but they're thinking they're doing the right thing as well. And until you get to the root of the problem in that sense, you're never going to get anywhere. I don't think that it is wise to use a third-party block list and to, moreover, just go ahead and use the manual blocks, because you know why you're blocking somebody. You know what you're getting yourself into. However, Twitter is one thing. Twitter is just one aspect of this whole scenario. When you hit follow somebody on Twitter, you know exactly who it is you're following. You know exactly what they're posting, for better or for worse. You know exactly what's going on. Reddit is an entirely different story. Reddit has a bit of a different mechanic to it, in that its front page has several different posts from several different subreddits, in which if you're not looking, you may be posting to a place where if you post to that one subreddit, there is a couple of different subreddits you might be banned automatically from, and we have seen that happen. There is a auto ban list that people can import from a site to a subreddit, and if you post on one of the subs that they deem to be undesirable, then you are going to be put on that list. of people that are auto banned from some of these other subreddits. Now, I'm not going to say who subreddit you are going to have to watch out for in order to not be banned, or who does it, because like some other block lists on Twitter, that seems to keep changing day by day. The definition of what is or what isn't something changes daily or maybe throughout the day. However, the idea of auto-banning someone for posting in a subreddit that is undesirable to them is a bit more dangerous, because if you are posting to a topic that you deem to be interesting toward you or what your interests are, you may be posting your thoughts or opinions about a certain story that somebody had posted to a subreddit, and then realize, wait a minute, they posted to this particular subreddit, which I might not like, might not be wanting to be associated with. Or maybe you are posting to a subreddit for a different reason and you don't have the same viewpoint that someone might think you do, just for the simple fact that you are posting to that subreddit at all before they even get into what exactly it is you said. And that, I think, is extremely dangerous. Now, with that being said, I want to get to the main point of this video, which is a tool that we found out about just today called Masstagger. Now, this was, according to a website, a continuation of a add-on for Google Chrome and Firefox by David Nathan, and it was started back in 2013. Now, a person by the screen name of Morphin has continued to work, and now he is asking to be supported on Ko-fi, whatever that may be. According to the website, it says, "I'm a software developer and avid Reddit user. I'm glad you've made it to my handy little tool here to identify potentially harmful users of the Reddit community. I appreciate you stopping by. Hopefully together we can help make Reddit a bit of a safer place for everyone. If you want to say thanks, send me a quick little message on Reddit letting me know you enjoyed the tool, or donate to my Ko-fi. Your donations help pay for server costs and help me to continue to add features and improve the plugin. Thanks." Now, how does this work? It shows you the features that are included in this, saying real-time tagging for dozens of extremists and troll subreddits, new one-time installation, install it and forget it, users will be fetched automatically, new allow priority sorting and tagging opt out by subreddit, new adjustable minimum post count, users with less than this number of posts in a sub will not be tagged, new subreddit level color customization, and a new click the tag to be taken to a full list of the users' posts on all tracked subreddits. Now, of course, the installation is the same as any add-on to Google Chrome or Firefox. I'm pretty sure you know of how to install an add-on on Firefox or Google Chrome by now. Then you get to the FAQ, and this is where it gets kind of fishy, because this shows you a little bit of what this guy actually believes, and I'm kind of glad that he posted this there, because it shows you just what his beliefs are and why this is going to be severely flawed. And yes, there is a subreddit for this extension, and yes, they are aware that other people are aware of it and are criticizing this usage and are criticizing the true nature of why this is being implemented. However, at the same time, this is quite scary because of the reasons that he gives. Not to mention that he gets the idea of what concern trolling even is completely backwards, and it leaves a lot of things open to where somebody can just simply say, okay, if you don't agree with me or my tactics, then you are a concern troll and you should be dismissed entirely from the discussion, or any of your points should be completely dismissed because all you are is a concern troll. It leaves the door wide open for that kind of dismissal, which is kind of scary given what we have seen this past week. The first FAQ just goes into why I write this, which I have already explained to you what this is all about, since he goes into detail about who originally created it and why he decided to relaunch this. Now, the second one is when he gets into a problem with what he says. According to what he says, isn't this promoting division rather than unity? He says this, quote, widely, yes, I do think so. What I don't believe is that that's necessarily a bad thing. My primary goal with this tagger is to tag users of hate subreddits, i.e. the kind of users that cannot be reasoned or compromised with. These users are known to intentionally troll other subreddits, posing as innocent members who agree but just have some concerns about the way you're presenting yourself. This is known as concern trolling. Ultimately, the goal of these concern trolls is to water down the message of the community into a less effective message, in order to weaken their position. By identifying those who are engaging in bad faith, we save time for those who may otherwise engage the bad actors in their concern trolling. There's a problem with what he believes is concern trolling, or she. I have no idea whether this person is a male or female, so please excuse me if I get the gender incorrect on who the person is who redid this whole thing. Next one on the list, saying, isn't this eerily similar to gold starring Jews before the Holocaust? He's saying, I've had people make that connection before. However, until I start genociding people I've tagged or they are discriminated against by a government entity, that comparison isn't really valid. Additionally, participation in certain subs is entirely voluntarily. No user is forced to post in a hate sub. And the rest of these are just questions about how the system works, about, okay, what happens if it malfunctions, what do I do, stuff like that. I'm not going to go into great detail about those because they don't really give any insight about what this guy believes. Besides the quote of why are you tagging subreddit, saying that a lot of people have taken issue with the subreddits I have chosen to tag, which is fine by me. First of all, this is something that I have been talking about in great deal lately. The whole idea is that you don't know their beliefs. You don't know who they consider to be hateful. You don't know what they consider to be a hate sub. What is the judge of this whole label? Is it just him? Because it does seem like he is the judge, jury, and executioner in this whole thing. Now, granted, this is only tagging somebody as somebody who posts in the aforementioned subs, those undesirable subs. The question here is that, is this going to be used in a way that is beneficial to normal people? Or is it going to be something that we already know how it's going to be used from people who just want to shield themselves and not have any other points of view being put forth? And more to the point, the idea of what he considers to be concern trolling is, pardon the pun, very concerning. Because here's the problem that I think a lot of people don't realize about this whole thing. It is okay to be progressive and be against some of the manners in which other people on the left and the liberal side choose to express their beliefs. More to the point is the issue that Tucker Carlson recently went through when a group of extreme left-wing radicals decide to go and terrorize his home. Now, thankfully, only his wife was there, but unthankfully, his wife was the one that was there that had to deal with the whole mess. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of progressive people are going to hate Tucker Carlson for what some of the things he says on his Fox News show. Now, I do think that he's more center-right than some of the other pundits on Fox News, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham being two of the main people. However, I do know that there are a lot of progressive people, mainly the people on the Young Turks, who don't like Tucker Carlson. But they too disagreed with the manner that Smash Racism DC chose to engage in this regard. However, by the definition that this guy posted on his website about what concern trolling is, showing concern about how Smash Racism DC went about their means, wouldn't the calling out of people who wanted to solve those problems with violence be called concern trolls by definition? In my mind, with this particular definition, yes, it would. It would easily. Would people who finally decided that enough was enough for Reset Era to be deplatformed on Twitter for a little bit, even in the least bit, for the little time that they were deplatformed, wouldn't they be called concern trolls under that particular definition? Yes, they would. There are liberals, there are Democrats who do not like the direction that some on the left are going toward, that they have to resort to violence, that they have to resort to those types of tactics. And they do that because they believe they are on the moral high ground. They are being told that they are on the moral high ground. They're the ones that are saying, hey, we are in the right, you are in the wrong for choosing to engage with some of these people who we deem as racist, who we deem as bigoted, who we deem as this or that. It doesn't matter what you think of them. If you are centrist, you are the same as enabling the alt-right or whatever they're calling them. In this sense, Bill Maher would be called a concerned troll, and he is far from that. Basically, in this sense, any moderate would be called a concerned troll by this definition, because there are moderates all over the place who don't like the directions that their side is going toward. The extreme sides of their parties are the ones that are winning the arguments, the ones that are the only ones being heard right now. And they need to find a way to get their voice back. But it's okay to be a moderate. It is okay to do that. And this whole idea of tagging somebody just because they choose to be a moderate, or labeling somebody as a concerned troll because they legitimately have a problem with how they choose to express their beliefs, is very troubling in of itself. Are there legitimately bad people on these subs that these lists do catch? Of course there are. There are a lot of bad apples out there. We're not saying that there isn't. The problem is that when you lump moderates, when you lump the rest of the people into that same group, you don't make it fair to those people who legitimately want to talk about things like transparency and fairness in gaming journalistic media, who really want to say, yes, we don't like Donald Trump, we hate Donald Trump, but at the same time, we don't like the direction authoritarians are taking some things right now. It is okay to do that, but according to this definition, it is not okay to do that, and they're getting told that they are right. Somehow we have to change that mentality. Somehow we have to change how people are thinking in that sense. The people who invaded Tucker Carlson's property thought they were on the moral high ground, and they think that they have people who are telling them that they are on the moral high ground. That's why they thought they were doing the right thing. And it was people like Reset Era who told them that yes, they were doing the right thing and they should be going further. That is a scary thing to say. That's a scary thing to think that people would go that far. And it's highly important that we call out that part. It's highly important that we do call out that kind of behavior, because it solves nothing. It proves nothing. But seeing this type of definition, as I said, does absolutely nothing to change it and just makes it worse by enforcing that sort of definition. However, as I said, to be fair, this is not a complete auto ban list. This is just showing people that, hey, they post on these subreddits that we deem to be undesirable. However, there is a key word, that we deem undesirable. There is no doubt in my mind of what this guy was intending this to be used for, because he only targets certain subreddits. Because when you look at the usual targets that this Masstagger goes for, these are the usual suspects, like the Donald or blank in action, whatever word you want to put in the blank there. These are the usual targets that a lot of these types of block lists or ban lists will go for, because in their mind, those places are enabling and harvesting hate speech. Now, are there bad apples in there? Of course there are. But let's say you see a story on one of those undesirable subreddits that you think, hey, this actually is a story I'm interested in, and I might have something to say about it. I might want to talk about that story. Or yeah, on that particular story, they might have the moral high ground in my estimation. Or maybe they are right about that one story. Or maybe they're not as bad as they seem to be, that I've heard that they are. Or maybe there is a story about something that I actually went into the subreddit for, that I subscribed to this subreddit for. There are subreddits that I don't subscribe to who every once in a while might come across a story that I might be legitimately interested in, because I'm interested in that particular subject, and so I might want to at times comment on that story. But if I don't know that they were posted by that one subreddit that is being targeted, then what would happen to me? How would I be viewed? How would I be tagged? How would anybody be tagged in that scenario? Or maybe they went onto that subreddit and they were trying to scold them for thinking the way they thought. Would they then be labeled just because they chose to engage in that? They chose to engage the people who are being labeled like that, whether or not those individuals or that subreddit deserved the label that they were given. There are a lot of nuances that need to be addressed here, and they're treating this as absolutes. And there is a big problem to be had there when you're treating those things as absolutes when there are complete nuances to be had there. No, this Masstagger doesn't auto-ban, but it's obvious what the guy was intending for it to be used for. To make it easier for those people who do use those ban lists, who do auto-ban based upon where you posted before, whether or not that's a fair assessment on a person's character or not, or a fair assessment of that subreddit or not, and they will use it in that sense. We are not dumb. We know exactly what is being intended by this whole Masstagger, and it's what he deems as undesirable. There is no evidence to support that they can change what is being tagged or where a person's being tagged for. There are certain subreddits that some other people might deem to be truly abhorrent or truly horrible that will never get a second look because we all know who this guy is targeting. The usual suspects. Those people that the media has deemed to be undesirable because they target the press. They target the media for their misgivings. And before you go saying, oh, we're blaming the media, remember, a lot of people believe Fox News is not fair or balanced, which they're not. Let's not kid ourselves there. A lot of people who are telling you, who are calling you out on stuff like the Smash Racism DC stuff are on the same side of those people who want equal protection for social groups, for LGBT communities, who want higher minimum wage, all those other fun stuff. They're on your side, but they don't agree with the stuff like what Smash Racism DC did. And yes, they created the backdrop. They created the example because of what they did. That was absolutely abhorrent, but also extremely stupid, because look what that created. It created the prime example. It created the single example that you can go to every single time you want to bring up the whole nature of separation between protest and going too far. That was going too far. There is a time to protest. There's a time for peaceful protests and marches, and what you saw there. And that was clearly stupidity in the highest regard, but they don't see it as that, as I said. They see it as them doing the right thing. And we gotta do something to take away that mentality. But how can we do it when we have people like this enforcing that belief? And other people not even listening when somebody brings up the flaws in a system like this, think, oh, well, it's working as intended. It's people like you we're trying to shield ourselves from. No, that is not what we're saying. We are on your side. So why are you trying to distance yourself from people like us? From people who will say, hey, we're progressives too, but we don't agree with what Smash Racism DC did. Does that make us concern trolls? Does that make us racist? It should not, but by your definition right now, it does. If this guy was truly interested in flagging those people who are deemed undesirable, he would go after more subreddits than he is. Not just the usual suspects, not just those that the media, the gaming media, and the press has deemed undesirable because they get called out by those very same subreddits and they don't want people to believe that they have a point, which they certainly do. And let's not pretend that the gaming media is still trying to label people in a way that is not even close to equivalent of what is being talked about if you take into account what people thought of Diablo Immortal and what the press started to say about those people who were calling out Blizzard on that behalf. There were no winners in that whole debate. But if he really was serious about flagging those people who could be racist or bigoted or whatever, then there were a lot of subreddits out there that he could be targeting instead of the usual suspects. Yes, maybe I am a fence sitter. Yes, maybe Bogey is a fence sitter. But you know what? That's okay. That's okay to be a moderate. It's okay to be a centrist. It's okay to be left or right of center. It's okay to be a moderate. It's okay to do that. It is okay to look at things through another perspective. It doesn't mean that that perspective is racist or homophobic or anything of the sort. It just means you're looking at it through a different pair of eyes. And maybe being a moderate is a good thing because it lets you see stuff like this that is going on. It makes you see a bit more clearly. As I said countless times, yes, Nazism and any form of bigotry should be squelched. However, the debate is whether or not the things that they choose to label as Nazism or bigoted can be defined in that manner. That's the debate that we need to have, not, oh, is Nazism or bigotry okay to do? Obviously not. We are on the same page of that. Why are we saying that we're not on the same page there? The problem is whether or not we agree that certain things count toward that definition. That's the actual discussion we need to have. That's the actual debate that we need to have. And this does nothing in order to make us be able to have that discussion. It just tries to oversimplify what we're concerned about. There's that word again, concern. In my mind, concern troll should never be a part of vernacular. That should not be a word. It should not be a term. There is no such thing as a concern troll. It doesn't exist. It should not be a part of Urban Dictionary or wherever it is. That is not a thing. There is no such thing as a concern troll. Unless you want to say that it's showing fake concern when you really could care less about that situation and are just using it in order to rouse up a crowd, then maybe so, but that might be the only definition. That might be the only way you can actually say that it is a thing, because in any other scenario, that is not the case. And especially in this scenario, this guy is wrong. He is not fooling anybody, and the people who are trained to defend it on that subreddit are not fooling anybody. We know exactly what it was supposed to be used for. We know the guy's intentions. We already know what kind of mindset this guy's political mind is. We already know the types of subreddits that he is targeting. And this is something that somebody can actually find out about another person by simply clicking their name on Reddit. It shows their post history. This is something that Reddit already does. This is not doing anything new. It is just labeling somebody as a thing they might not be just because they chose to engage in a particular conversation on a particular subreddit that they might not even know they're being a part of until they look and say, oh my god, I might have been on a post from the Donald. I might have posted somebody on there. What's going to happen to me now? Because that's just how Reddit is. It is working in that way, and it is working the way they want it to be. So why in the world is this going to help anybody? This is just furthering the whole mentality that the only thing you have to do to dodge any hard questions or to be able to reinforce your beliefs that what you're doing is the right thing is to cut off at the pass anybody who might say, hey, maybe that's not the right way to do it. We're on your side, but that might not be the definition of what I consider racism or what I consider bigotry or what I consider anything. And it just reinforces the whole belief that the way to silence any criticism is to make people fearful that they're going to be labeled as such, or to label somebody as such anyway. And yes, the right and the left wing both do this. They both contribute to this problem. Somehow, we gotta get this on the right page. We gotta get this on the same page. This is solving nothing. This is doing absolutely nothing to solve this problem, and it's only making it worse. And it is worse than those third-party block lists on Twitter because the way Reddit works makes it nearly impossible for you to completely avoid those quote-unquote undesirable subreddits. What he considers a hate sub is not the same as what we might consider a hate sub. And that's the first big problem with something like this. I advise people to not use this because it solves absolutely nothing. And it does absolutely nothing besides labeling somebody based on someone else's beliefs, not your own. And if you really think that that is the way to go, then congratulations, you just found your main problem right there. My name is JD Shadow, and of course that just happened.